Hey everyone, welcome to our magic turtle tutorial. You can see here we're going to be making lots of cool little fungi and mushroom related things to stick on our cuties. And then we'll also have some lovely amethyst chips to finish it off. So in your kits you should have your template mats, polymer clay, some amethyst chips, and all your scissors, wire, toothpick, needle, super glue, and then all of your colourful goodies to finish it off at the end. And then you'll also need some wipes to wipe your hands in between using your polymer clay. So opening up, you'll see got all your lovely colours, and you'll also have two lots of your green and your granite to do your two separate turtles. So pulling it all out, you can see here that I had a bit of troubles. If you have that trouble too, just grab your pair of scissors. You should be able to get your clay out that way. So starting off, we're going to just go through and mix all of our colours. So you can see we've got our brown for our brown mushrooms, the yellow for yellow, our orange for the orange fungi, our green for the moss, green for the moss, we use our grey for the little barnacles, and then we create a nice tone of red and yellow for our other mushrooms. So giving it a little wipe down, we're going to start by mixing our clays up. So we're going to do about half the amount of white to brown ratio, mixing it up to create a nice light tan colour. Awesome. Next we're going to move on and do our little grey. So you really only need the tiniest bit of black to add to your white, because black is a very overpowering colour. Awesome, that's looking good. So rolling it up into a ball, popping it aside, we're going to be moving on and doing our nice yellowy orange colour. So you can see here we're just adding a little bit of red to our yellow, and in this filming I actually did stuff up a little bit and I added too much red to my yellow, and you can already see that here. So what we'll need to do is add a bit more yellow from our remaining yellow that we had, but that's why you do definitely need to ensure you only add little bits of red to your yellow at a time so it doesn't turn too orange. Alright, now we're going to try and create our light yellow colour for the oyster mushrooms, and then whatever yellow we have left over we'll use to fix our remaining colour. Mixin'. Alright, I'm going to try and fix that yellow up a bit more. Awesome, those colours are looking great. We'll move on to the next. So now we're going to be making that nice light orangey colour. You can see we've halved our white, so it's about half the white to orange ratio. Awesome. And we're going to be moving on and doing our red. So you can see the mushrooms that we've got here, they're not actually a bright red, so we've added a little bit of brown to give it that slightly sort of, I completely forgotten, maroon. Just slightly maroon colour. awesome. It's a really nice tone of maroon there. Now giving your hands a good wipe after the red because it does tend to stain really well. Now we're going to be going through and making our turtle base. Now if you've done any of our other kits before, then you'd already know how to make your turtle. If not, follow along with me. Firstly, this clay is a bit tougher, so you want to work it for a little bit longer to make it nice and soft. And then you're just going to be breaking it off and rolling 4 separate sized balls in accordance to the legs, shell, head and tail. Alright, moving on, we're going to start with our shell. So you can see here I'm just popping it on and pushing it down so it's nice and even with the template mat. Now it is a little bit bigger, but that'll just be a matter of you changing the ratio of all your other parts. And it's better to have a big shell so there's plenty of space for you to put all your little mushrooms on. Now we're going to do the legs. I just like to roll it out into a bit of a snake so it's easy for me to separate into the 4 little balls for our 4 little legs. Awesome. And now we're going to be doing the head. So you can see here I've done a bit of a slanted pinching roll, and that creates a bit of a tadpole effect. So you get a cute rounded little head and a nice long neck. And then finally the tail, which is just a slanted roll to create a nice little point. And starting off with the head, pushing it on place, and then lining your feet up, which we've done on a slanted roll again to create a bit of a cone shape. Nice and pointed. It's got a nice flat bottom to it. Now you're going to be pushing them on, applying a decent amount of pressure so they're firmly attached. And the reason you had to make sure there was a good amount of height to begin with, so that was when you push them on, it wasn't completely squishing them down. They still had a bit of height to them. But of course, if they do come off, we've got some super glue to fix it up. So now moving on to the moss, and you can see we've just got a nice big mound of moss on the back of our turtle's shell. So you want to make it roughly the same size. Then you pop it on and you're just gently squishing it into place. Moving along, we're going to start making up all our little parts for our turtle, starting with our little grey barnacle ball things. So we have 2 sets of these, a set of 3 and a set of 2. So the set of 3 we do biggest to smallest, and then for the 2 we do 1 large and 1 small one. You can see there the 2 size sets that I've got. And then you're going to grab your paintbrush and push it into the ball to create a nice hollowed out barnacle or fungi, whatever it is. Now we're going to be doing our 2 little big flat mushrooms for the front, which is just a matter of doing the 2 different sizes. So you've got 1 large and 1 small, starting out with balls, and then you're going to pat it down more so around the edges so you get a nice rounded top. Moving along, we're going to do our little orange fungi, and we're just going to roll out some little balls and squish it down. Now you don't need to worry about making these completely circular. It makes it unique if they're cool shapes. And then you can see we're just going through and blotching it with the end of our paintbrush to give it a really cool effect. And then doing the same with the smaller one. Now we're going to be doing our red and white mushrooms, the standard ones. Starting off with the actual white toadstool part, we're going to be rolling 3 different size balls for the 3 different size mushrooms. And then we're going to be rolling our mushrooms out so we can create that tall toadstool effect. So you can see I'm doing it on a bit of a slanted roll again, pinching it to create that toadstool shape. Skinnier at the top and fatter at the bottom. Awesome. Now we're going to be doing our top sections. And again, we're going to be rolling 3 little balls, trying to perfect the perfect top to bottom ratio. Add a bit more. Yeah, that looks good to me. Now we're going to be pressing these little balls onto our finger, and you can see it creates that little indentation, and then making sure it's got a nice round top to it. Just like that. Squishing it onto your finger, rounding off the top. Awesome. Now give your hands a good wipe anytime you use that red. It does tend to stain. Then we're just going to be gently pushing our tops and bottoms together. Adding a little bit of extra detail if you'd like, and it also just helps them stick that little bit more. You're scratching it up underneath. Sweet. Popping them aside. Gonna be moving on and doing our yellow mushrooms, our oyster mushrooms. So in doing this, we're going to do 2 yellow tops. So you can see we're doing 2 yellow balls, one slightly bigger than the other. And then what we're going to be doing is squishing it out like we did with our other mushroom. But with this one, we want there to be a bit more of a point to it. As you can see here, I'm paying particular attention to the edges, trying to pinch those out. So it kind of creates a bit of a UFO type look. See, it's got that raised, beveled bit in the middle. And then we're going to be using our paintbrush to create a bit of a hole. Smoothing it all out. That looks good. And we'll try that again. So pinching out those edges, so it's got that nice raised bit on the inside. And then creating a hole. and then moving on to the white parts. So you've got 2 white balls. Now what you want to be doing is rolling them on a slanted motion, but really ensuring it comes to a bit more of a point than we generally do with our mushrooms. You can see I'm pulling it out a little bit, so that way it matches up nicely with the bottom of our yellow part. Folding the yellow over. Awesome. And then we're going to go through with our needle and create quite the detail, scratching it up so it looks like that shredded inside of an oyster mushroom. And now doing the same thing, but just a little bit smaller for our next mushroom. Lining it up, and then we want to drag that yellow downwards so it looks like it's overlapping. Finishing off with little scratches. Awesome, oyster mushrooms are done. Now we're going to be doing our brown mushrooms, our taller ones and just our little stubby ones. So again, starting off with little balls, we're going to do our smaller and our larger mushroom at the front. And then similar to those ones, except you're having it come to a bit more of a point rather than the rounded top. Awesome, it's got a nice little point to it. Now we'll squish it out a bit and move on to the next. This one will be a bit quicker. There we go. Lovely. Now we're going to do the bottom sections, which is the same thing that we did for our red and white mushrooms, but of course it's going to be all brown or all tan. Doing our slant roll, giving it a decent amount of height, and then gently pressing it in place. Wonderful. Now our very last mushrooms to be done are our tall and skinny ones. So we have 6 different sizes of that type, but they all have the same head size. So you're going to be rolling 6 little balls of the same size. And then finally you're going to be rolling out a long snake, and that's going to be for the big long stems of our mushrooms. Trying to keep that finger pressure nice and even. You can see there's lots of different sizes. So for now I'm just going to go through and cut. You can see we've got 1 long one, 2 of the same size, and then the remaining ones after that go from biggest to smallest. It's got long, 2 the same size, and the remaining 3 will continue to go down. Now if you want to do them a bit bigger or a bit smaller, it's completely up to you guys. We've got our little tops. What we're going to do is go through and roll them all so they're slightly like an egg shape. Finishing them off with a little hole which our mushroom stem will be able to go into. So it's a similar process to our little grey barnacles that we did at the beginning. Our mushroom pieces are done. It's time to cut up some wire with our scissors, and this is going to be for all of our little mushroom parts. So the wire helps you put your mushrooms in easily, and of course some of them are really quite thin, so it helps give that stability factor. So I'm just going through and just cutting off all sorts of random lengths. You have plenty of wire, so if you've cut any incorrectly, it's no stress. You can see I'm just going to poke my wire up and through the center of my polymer clay. And this is going to turn it into a nice, strong, sturdy stick when it's once it's baked. Popping the little mushroom top on. And you do want to be careful that when you're putting your mushroom top on that the wire's not pushing through the top. Just want to leave a tiny little section, obviously fixing up any mistakes along the way. And you also want to make sure that the wire that's popping out the bottom of your mushroom isn't too long. That way it's going to potentially pop through your moss and through the bottom of your turtle. Try and keep it about 1 centimeter maximum. And now you can just go through and continue doing that for all of your different mushrooms. So finishing off your tall ones and then progressing onto all of your smaller ones. And it makes it a really satisfying process when it comes to placing all your mushrooms on your turtle. It's placement time. You'll see here I'm just going to smash through it because it's really quite simple with the wire. You're just going to pop all your little red ones on first, and then from there I place my little barnacles. You can see I've got the 2 at the front here. And then I've also got my 2 mushrooms. Just apply a little bit of pressure and then follow through with our smaller brown mushrooms along with the oysters. You can see I kind of have them popping out the side with the tallest one at the back, smaller one towards the front. And then we have our tall ones. So this is completely up to you guys how you want to go about it, but I generally start with my taller one that at the very top. You can already see that the wires pop through the top a little bit, so you just need to fix that up. And then from there I'm going to be doing my 2 shorter ones. from side to side, with the next shortest at the front, followed by our smaller ones along the side. And of course fixing up any wire that popped through the top, because it'll happen. It's really coming together. So now we're going to put our 3 little barnacles at the back there. Place them however you want really. I try to go with a bit of a triangular pattern. And then I have my 2 little orange fungi along the side. Ensuring you're leaving enough space for your amethyst when it comes. Alright, so you can see you've got all sorts of different sizes, and it's really just a matter of looking at different size chips and finding a nice spot to pop it in, kind of like a mosaic. You can see I've left nice even gaps in between my amethyst, trying to give it good height in certain spots, and also utilizing those nice small ones to pop in the little gaps and around the edges. And you do want to try and push that amethyst in nice and deep, so that way once it's baked it's not going to fall off straight away. It's got a nice little divot to hop in. Fixing up any of the little details that may have been smooshed along the way. And then we're going to do, well, one of my favourite parts, the moss. That's just a matter of you going through and pricking your little moss over and over and over again until you get this nice aerated effect happening. Being really careful not to prick any of your mushrooms and whatnot. So our moss is done. It's now time to put our coloured pastels on. Another favourite part. So we're going to start off with our reds first. You can see we start off by popping it in the middle of our mushrooms. Real emphasis on that centre part, and then we're blending the red outwards. So you start off with a bit of an ombre. Red to orange ombre. Getting a nice deep in the center, and then we're doing a very similar thing on this side. Of course, we're going to be going from red to orange to yellow because this is a really vibrant yellow. So you can see we're doing nice and deep red in the center. And then we'll be grabbing our orange, to blend that red in with the rest of the yellow. It's a nice smooth transition between colours. Stunning. Now we're going to be putting some purple inside our little barnacles. Just makes it nice and deep, sort of illuminates it. I reckon it's a really nice touch, that purple. Filling in those holes and then blending it slightly. And then we're going to be doing our little brown garnishes. It's a very similar style, just blotching it on top, emphasis on the very tip, and then blending it outwards. And you want to be very gentle in this part. You don't want to push that wire through the top, just being really gentle with your patting. Awesome. That's our pastelling done. This guy's ready to be baked. So we're gonna put it in at, I'm putting it at 200, but I do recommend 180. My oven's just a little bit bodge. Just putting it in on a non-stick pan. And we're gonna start at 5 minutes. So let's see how it's doing. It still needs a little bit longer, I'd say. Generally when the clay starts to set, it starts to smoke a little bit. And you'll also find that when you stick your finger in it, it doesn't create the indentation quite as much. So let's have a look. Oh no, it may not be smoking, but it's actually good. So, final touches, we're going to be painting and gluing. So you can see on our red and yellow colours, we've got that nice glossy look, and that's because we've used this tacky glue as a glaze. So doing that over these two mushrooms at the front, and then also our oyster mushrooms on the side. Now if you want, you can put the glue on more of it. I just like to put it on these two, it's nice emphasis. Alright, let that set for a bit and then we'll move on to our white. So we'll do the white on our red. Obviously we'll have to wait for that glue to set a little bit before we move on to that one. Just doing lots and lots of little splotches, or spots, sorry. Different sizes, and you can see I do stuff up my spots a couple times, but if anything that makes it look more realistic, I reckon. Alright, those ones are now dried. You can come through and do our very last spots. Dun, 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 dun. And we are done! Thank you so much for purchasing one of our kits, guys. We hope you loved the tutorial and that you made the best little magic turtles ever.